Hello and welcome to another episode of the Identity Navigator. This is your host, Rohit. Thank you for the great feedback on the last episode, which was about continuous access evaluation. Check it out if you haven't done it. We now have a community of listeners from over 40 countries. Thank you all so much. Please keep the emails and LinkedIn messages coming and let me know if you would like to hear more about any specific topic. Which brings me to today's topic, which a lot of you have requested in the past few months, and I personally have been very interested about it as well. As more and more attacks roots back to identity and identity compromise, we are and will see more of a few things. The first is identity becoming the primary attack vector and taking a center stage in cybersecurity teams. We have already seen this happening. Identity is now the number one attack vector in most of the cyber attacks. And the number two things that you would see more of is emergence of the new IAM domains and tools. Some of these domains and tools, they are absolutely going to change the way we manage and think about digital identities and access control. But then you have also got your opportunists, those just trying to catch a ride on the IAM gravy train. They see the dollar sign and think, hey, why not slap an IAM label on our product and see what happens? In the realm of identity and access management, we are all familiar with domains like identity governance, consumer identity, access management, a- privileged access management, so on and so forth. However, there is a new domain emerging that is gaining significant traction among major players in the identity industry: identity threat detection and response, or commonly called as ITDR. ITDR is poised to become a major force, offering innovative ways to detect and respond to identity related threats. As this domain continues to evolve, it holds immense potential to reshape how we approach identity security. But we also need to look into, is it truly a new concept, or is it a fad, or is it only being spun around by the opportunists? Because the word DR is very sellable. As soon as you identify a threat surface, create a DR product like XDR, EDR, and so many other DRs exist today. Now, detection and response, or DR, isn't some security secret sauce. I would argue that by definition, it is a reactive approach. There is an inherent complexity with identity, though. If we were discussing endpoints, servers, networks, or firewalls, this could be shut down. But you cannot just shut down an identity. You cannot just run a scanner on it. It is very different from physical things that we have traditionally guarded, and therein lies the complexity of it. So I would say with identity security, you are not guarding the vulnerabilities, you are not guarding the gaps, you are guarding the front door of your organization, and this is a front door that cannot be closed. This is a door that has to be big enough for your guests, friends, and family to come in. And this is the same door that attackers are now utilizing as well. You know how in those heist movies, the bad guys sometimes use fancy disguises to blend in with the crowd? Well, identity based attacks are kind of like that, but way sneakier. Imagine a high security art museum. Now, instead of trying to break in through a window or disable the alarm system, our cyber thief does something much more clever. They don't just dress up as security guard. They somehow convince a real guard to hand over their uniform, badge, and access code. Now our thief isn't just walking around in a costume. They have got all the real credentials. They can scroll right past every checkpoint, open any door, and even chat with other staff without raising suspicion. They are not trying to fool the cameras or dodge the sensors. They are using the system exactly as it's meant to be used, but for all the wrong reasons. Now, because everything they are doing looks totally legit from the outside, nobody is going to raise an eyebrow. They are not breaking the rules, they are playing by them, but with a totally different end game in mind. This is what makes these identity based attacks so darn dangerous. The bad guys aren't just pretending to be one of the good guys. They are manipulating the whole system to make it look like they are the good guys. It is not about wearing a convincing mask, it's about changing the face underneath. Thus, we need dedicated approach to solve this problem. And ITDR products or domains is trying to do it. We are witnessing a significant shift in the industry, with major players making strategic moves to solidify their positions in this emerging space. Cisco, for instance, has recently acquired ORD, a move that is set to bolster their extended detection and response capabilities. Similarly, Delinea has brought Automize into their fold, enhancing their ability to detect and mitigate identity based threats across cloud environments. But it's not just about acquisitions. Industry giants like Beyond Trust, CrowdStrike, and Sentinel One are investing heavily in developing their own ITDR technologies. Microsoft, always a force to be reckoned with, is leveraging its existing products, integrating Entra with Defender XDR to create a comprehensive ITDR solution. But there is one small problem. Like Zero Trust, no one really is sure of what ITDR is. As this space is still taking shape, we are seeing multiple players entering the market, each bringing their own interpretation of what ITDR truly encompasses. But this diversity is good because this diversity is driving innovation and pushing the boundaries of identity security. As the ITDR landscape continues to evolve, it is clear that this is more than just a passing trend. It is becoming a crucial component of modern cybersecurity strategies, addressing the growing challenge of identity based threats in our increasingly cloud centric world. A lot of these companies don't even use the word ITDR in their product names. So, if and hopefully when you are looking into ITDR solutions, keep in mind that you might need to look beyond just the product name. You will have to focus on the capabilities and how they align with your organization's needs for identity protection. It's about the function and not just the label, right? So, if you are looking at the vendor telling you why do you need ITDR, you might have to do extensive research. You want to be clear on what do you want ITDR to be in your company and then start looking for those solutions. Because as we discussed, every vendor is coming with their own set of implementations for this space. So when I realized how fluid this space is and how many unknowns there are, I had to phone a friend, and I reached out to Mike Newshounder, who is one of the world's leading expert on ITDR. Mike, as great as he is, hooked me up with some excellent insights that allowed me to be more thorough in my research, and I cannot help or cannot thank him enough for setting me all with all of his research and his point of view that really made my arguments more convincing. Interestingly, Mike has proposed the name Identity Defense in Depth, which in short could read as IDID, or you could also read it as I did, which has a nice ring to it. I don't think it has caught up yet, but there is a void in industry today. I think in the very near future, ITDR would be renamed to something which more and more of identity teams would associate with. Now, ITDR is essentially bridging two previously distinct domains in cybersecurity: identity and access management and Security Operations Centers or SOC. Historically, these two areas operated in relative isolation. IAM focused on managing digital identities and access rights, while the SOCs concentrated on detecting and responding to security threats. Now, with ITDR, we are seeing a convergence of these disciplines. This convergence isn't just a minor shift, it is a significant evolution in how we approach cybersecurity. At its core, ITDR aims to protect against attack that compromises user identities. Personally, for me, and I'm oversimplifying it a little, ITDR is a use case, but it is here to stay. It might go through a few iterations, it might go through the change in a nomenclature, it might have increase or decrease in scope, but this use case or the underlying thought process behind it is here to stay. So, the foundational things an ITDR system should be able to do, what are those? Let's look into those a little bit. Number 1, threat detection, which means monitoring identity related activities to detect anomalies or suspicious behaviors that may indicate a potential threat, such as unusual login patterns, privilege escalations, or unauthorized access attempts. Number 2, what it should be able to do is investigation of detected anomalies to determine their nature and potential impact. This involves analyzing logs data, user behavior, and any other relevant information to understand the scope and intent of the threat. And number 3 is based on these anomalies, taking appropriate action to neutralize the threat and prevent further compromise. This may include blocking access, revoking compromised credentials, or implementing additional security measures to protect the affected identities. So, it could be simply thought of as cybersecurity aimed at identity, right? Cybersecurity aimed to protect a broad range of IT assets and infrastructure. ITDR hones in on the specific challenges of securing identities and access management systems. Irrespective of what you think it is pretty evident that this is an important space. You may not even call it ITDR. You may not even consider it an IAM, or you could consider that it was always present as cybersecurity control, and thus there is nothing new. But just based upon the recent increase in identity based attacks, and I don't want to quote some random statistics, you would have to think about and implement these controls to enhance your organization's security posture. So it has always been there, but because of the recent attacks, it is now at the forefront. And the attackers are asking you to be more implicit or explicit about how you are going to be dealing with. The challenge lies in the scope of the problem, right? Identities exist everywhere in our digital ecosystem, and the contextual knowledge needed, like a service account may not have MFA, but a user account must. This is where the challenge is. It's about the context or the depth where you are going in, and this is the challenge with multiple vendors as well, right? We spoke about the three basic things that every ITDR system should have, things like threat detection, investigation of detected anomalies, and then response based upon those anomalies, right? In threat detection, we spoke about potential threats like unusual login patterns, privilege escalation, and some of the other things. Now, the maturity of your system to identify more of these potential threats. Can you look at, can you identify man in the middle attack? Can you identify a session hijacking? Can you identify impossible travels? Can you identify behavioral differences? Can you identify golden ticket attacks? And just goes on and on. So maturity of that threat detection is really a challenge for the vendors. And for you as a buyer, what or how mature do you want that threat detection to be? Because you like it or not, you will never have everything unless you are going to be paying $100 million for this simple solution, right? You will have to pick and choose based upon your risk appetite. But for defining that risk appetite, you will first have to define for yourself what is the threat that you are trying to mitigate, right? And then we will get about, okay, so these are the threats that we want to mitigate. How is the tool detecting the anomalies, and how is the tool responding on those anomalies? Do you want an automated response, or do you want the response to be manual? What type of workflows do you want behind it? These are all implementation details and business problems to solve, but threat detection should that scoping should be number one in your list when you are looking into this space or domain. So if ITDR had a maturity scale, it will depend on a few things. I'll tell you 10 of those. Number one is no vendor in the world can come and solve it if you do not know how accurate your identity and access inventory is, right? So in the maturity scale, the number one criteria is accuracy of your identity and access inventory. Now, remember, identities are both human and non-human. And non-human just doesn't mean your service accounts. This also means your API keys, your certificates, your JOT tokens. And access is both direct and indirect. It could be indirect access like group membership, which we all assume. But then policy inheritance that we all could think of, but then also think about assumed roles in the cloud, which is completely different from how role based access control works on premise. So you would have to look into both human and non human identities and both direct and indirect access, and that would be the number one criteria for your ITDR maturity. Number two is how clean is your inventory and do you know the risk associated with it? Clean, most up to date. And number three on the maturity scale would be familiarity with historical attack paths, known weaknesses, and understanding of evolving threat vectors. And this would really depend on the product. This is something that you should expect from the product. What is their familiarity with historical attack paths? What is in scope for them? Do they understand the weaknesses? And how do they cater to the evolving threat vectors? So some of the historical attack paths, like we discussed, golden ticket and also silver ticket, pass the hash, password spraying, man in the middle, credential harvesting, curb roasting, credential compromise detection, insider threat detection. So ask this question about what is the scope of their detection. And this would be one of the things that would count towards your ITDR maturity. The fourth thing that would count against your maturity scale is effectiveness of reactive controls like log analysis. And don't think of this about the silos. Think of it, the control should be smart enough to look at two different and innocent events and sniff a problem, right? So association is one thing, but looking at two distinct and different innocent events and still I trying to and still being able to sniff a problem with relative high success rate is what would count towards the reactiveness effectiveness of your reactive control. Number 5 on this scale is effectiveness of detective controls like creation of baseline identity security posture and anomaly detection. And this is really for us to decide or define. Number 6 is pairing these two reactive and detective controls together. Number 7 on the maturity scale is what are the ways how you conduct threat hunting on identity. Number 8 is integration with your SIEM and SOAR and other systems so that you can have multi-plane coverage. So multi-plane coverage and the maturity of that would count towards the maturity of your ITDR. Number 9 is organizational effectiveness between SOC and IAM teams, those standard operating procedures and handoffs that exist. And last but not the least, a key factor in defining or determining your maturity scale for ITDR is automated remediation capabilities. Because by definition, it has the word response in it. And how automated your remediation or response is, that would define the maturity of your ITDR. There is another interesting concept here called as identity deception. It is conceptually similar to honeypots used in networking. Both involve creating decoy elements designed to attract and engage potential attackers. Right? So they consist things like honey accounts. These are fake user accounts created within identity store like Active Directory. They are designed to attract attackers. When an unauthorized user attempts to access these accounts, it triggers alerts and allows security teams to respond quickly. And honey tokens, which are deceptive credential profiles placed in identity cache on endpoints. They serve as early warning signals when accessed by unauthorized users, helping to identify potential breaches before they escalate. So, this is not a new concept. Think of it as honeypots used in networking, right? But these identity deception is not to fool or deceive your ITDR system. This is a control that ideally, should exist in the ITDR systems, and these identities should be known to your ITDR system. This is not a way of checking which ITDR tool is most effective. This is a way of catching an attacker earlier in their journey. Some of the leaders we spoke about in this space are Beyond Trust, CrowdStrike, I have Falcon Identity Plate Protection, Delinia's Automized platform, and Microsoft with their Entra ID and XDR uh, implementations. Now, next time we will talk about Beyond Trusts and their Identity Security Insights tool. We'll see what it does in the next episode and see how they stack up to everything that we discussed today. Also, the platform that I used to record the podcast has now been made redundant. So I'm trying this episode on a new platform, so you might hear a new intro and outro music. In any case, thank you for listening. Please keep sending me those emails and LinkedIn messages. It really helps me to keep this going and invest the time. I can always be reached out via LinkedIn, or you can email me at theidentitynavigator@gmail.com. Thank you all. I'm really looking forward to your responses on the ITDR. What do you think about it? What resonated with you the most, and what would you like to have heard more? Until next time, this is Rohit, your Identity Navigator.